welcome to the Cook Memorial Public Library podcast, where we invite you to spend just a few minutes with the staff at Cook Library. I'm Nate Goss, and I am so excited because today we have our very first author interview on the podcast. We hope this is the first of many more, but we wanted to kick things off with a bang by having Mary Higgins Clark and Anthony award-winning mystery author Lori Rader-Day, which for listeners who don't know, these awards are kind of a big deal among mystery readers. So it is with great enthusiasm that we say, Lori, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Lori's going to be here to talk about her follow-up to the critically acclaimed Little Pretty Things. This time we have a mystery suspense set in small-town Indiana where handwriting analyst Anna Winger is enlisted by the local sheriff to help with the investigation of a missing boy. The title of the book is The Day I Died. And Lori, I just wanted to kind of start with a general question. I read that this started for you as a short story, written, I think it was like almost 10 years ago. So,
exactly, 10 years ago.
So what made you decide The Day I Die was going to be your next book? Like, what made you decide that now was the time to dust this one off?
A couple of things. First of all, I had this in the drawer, and it was a complete draft of a novel. And there was a part of me that thought, well, that'll be easy. I can do this quickly. I can get a book done and published perhaps very quickly. Mystery writing is a sort of one book a year enterprise for most authors, if you can. And I thought, well, I'm not going to do it unless I use what I already have in the drawer, the quote-unquote the drawer.
Sure.
I have a file folder on my computer called The Drawer.
Oh, okay.
But you know what? I was not right about that. It took longer than I thought to take a full draft and turn it into something that I would be proud of.
How long was that process?
Oh, probably still a year, at least a year of just working on it. I left my day job about a year and a half ago. I was working on it at the time, and I thought, well, this is the thing I need to do next. So I dedicated 10, 12-hour days for about 6 weeks to get it revised. So that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Much more than I thought it was going
dedication.
to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wanted to get it right. And then the other reason I went back to it was really because of the character. Anna Winger is a great character. I thought I missed her. I wanted to let her see the world.
How would you describe Anna Winger if you had to?
Well, she's isolated. She's closed off. She's you find out very quickly in the book that she is on the run from a past for reasons that you'll find out over the course of the book. She's lonely. And over the course of the book, she starts to build a community. I think someone mentioned, oh, this is odd. Usually you watch a mystery character shed her community. She loses people. She loses support. She is alone at the end. But in this case, Anna starts out alone and builds a community over time. Yeah,
one thing that's, I guess, why a lot of us read fiction is that you can embody a character for a little bit and get to know a completely different perspective, on things. And you're right, Anna she's a very complicated character, and she's got a very messy past. But I have to say that, Anna, she reads very true in the book, and we get her brutally honest perspective throughout. And I think as the reader, you do understand why she makes choices she does, even if you don't agree with them. You see why she reacts the way she does, even why she parents the way she does. And you can't really help but empathize with her. And I think that what really comes through for me is that it seems like you really internalize this character, or at least put a lot of effort into getting her right. So I guess my question is, what do you consider, or what questions do you have to ask yourself when you set out to write a troubled character like Anna? Because I really think you do a very marvelous job with that.
Oh, thank you. I think a lot of writing is getting into the skin of the character who's telling the story. It doesn't matter who that character is. It's about getting around in that character's body and walking around and experiencing the world, and keeping in mind at all times that you're seeing the world through that character, not yourself. Anna's been through a lot. She's survived a lot. But she wants to survive further. She wants to live a larger life. She wants to be free. And I don't think that's the sort of thing that you have to have gone through what she's gone through to understand those emotions and to understand those inclinations. I've gotten a lot of people saying, "Oh, do you have kids? Do you have a 13-year-old boy?"
I was wondering the same thing.
I don't. I don't have any kids. Somebody was asking me just recently. I said, observation, I guess. So many of my friends have kids.
Yeah.
It's just cluing in, being very observant, and maybe stealing other people's life experiences.
Sure, yeah. It does seem, just kind of looking through what some of your past books have dealt with, even that a lot of your characters, they seem to be kind of in a rut, or at least they maybe carry a perception that maybe other people have things a lot more figured out than they do. And there is something that's really relatable, I think, to that as a reader. Because I think on some level we all kind of have that feeling.
Don't you feel like that? I feel like that too. I'm not a grown-up. I don't understand other people, how they get through the day and do all the things they're supposed to, how they adult, as the phrase goes these days.
Yeah. But I guess what I'm wondering is, it seems like an interesting take to build mysteries off of that. So why do you think that you tend to decide to build your mystery narratives off of characters like that?
I guess in some ways each of my characters is a little bit of me. So probably I've got my own issues to work out. Thanks for pointing that out. I do like to write characters who are stuck, who feel like life has passed them by, like they may have taken a wrong turn at some point, and have, if not regrets, at least curiosity about who they could have been, who they might have been if they had gone left instead of right.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that's something that's pretty universal. At least I hope it is, because I definitely wonder about that sort of thing.
Exactly. It's like what I said, it's so relatable. Let me switch gears a little bit here, and let's just talk about you as a writer. I noticed in your book you actually dedicate this book to your parents, and you say they gave you a happy childhood, and yet I still turned out to be a writer, which I'm assuming is kind of a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. But how did you get into writing?
I became a writer very young. I was a reader first. I think that's fairly true of most writers. Not all, but most. My mother would take me to the library every week, and we would just, stock up on books, cart them home, go back the next week. So I was a huge reader, and I loved Beverly Cleary, Ramona Quimby books. That was my jam when I was about 7 years old, 6 or 7, and I remember looking at the cover and thinking, who's this Beverly Cleary person? These stories exist, but it suddenly occurred to me, someone is creating them. Yeah. And, well, if someone is creating them, then so can I. I can create Ramona Quimby stories. So my first attempt at writing was a Ramona Quimby fan fiction story. Nice. I didn't get very far.
Is that still in the drawer?
No, that is
maybe the next book coming
set on fire at some point, I hope. I didn't get very far. And then I wrote, all through school. Probably started finishing things in junior high or high school. In college, I had a group of friends who lived in my dorm who would sort of bug me for the next story, so that I had an audience for the first time. Yeah. And that helped me produce quite a bit around that time. But then when I graduated and started working and started, living a full and adulting life, I fell away from it pretty easily. There were about 5 years where I didn't write a single thing for myself. And so I had to, kind of fight my way back out of that. And one of the ways I did that is I studied writing at Roosevelt University in Chicago.
Has it always been kind of mysteries, or that general genre that has been your niche, or where you found yourself sort of landing?
I used to read them. I read, Encyclopedia Brown, and I skipped Nancy Drew. There were too many of them. I was just too intimidated. But I also loved Lois Duncan, which is like psychological suspense, or what we would call now young adult. Yeah. But there was no young adult at the time.
That's right, yeah.
I read Agatha Christie. I read Mary Higgins Clark. And then I stopped noticing, I think, if I was reading a mystery or not a mystery, until I started writing this short story that got a little long. And one of my teachers at Roosevelt at the time said, "This is not a short story, keep writing." So I thought, well, that's easy for her to say. But I did, and that's when I wrote the entire full draft of The Day I Died. But I had to be told that it was a mystery because there was a crime in the first 20 pages. I thought I was just writing a fiction. I didn't know.
Well, I think that brings up a good point, actually, because I do think that you do, at least in this book, you do a really good job of sort of genre blending. It's kind of like it is a mystery, and then it sort of goes into maybe like a psychological domestic thriller, maybe, I don't know.
Nobody knows.
But it's also just sort of a kind of a broader character study as well. And Is that something that just happens naturally, or is that an intentional choice of yours? Like, you don't want to be sort of wedged into a certain genre?
Well, I do not mind being wedged into mystery at all. I love mystery. I love reading mystery. I love the mystery community. Now that I know I'm a mystery writer, I've met so many great mystery people. I would also like to help people find mystery who think they don't like mystery, who think they don't like crime novels. Crime novels aren't just about crime. They're about all the other things that novels are about. So I don't mind that people see more than a crime novel there, but I don't mind being a crime novel at all.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
I actually was curious, when you're writing or when you think of an idea, do you tend to start with characters in mind, or do you start more with story?
You know, each book has been different so far. So my first novel, The Black Hour, I started with a sort of what-if situation that I imagined. In Little Pretty Things, my second novel, I started with a character. It was sort of a character based on who I might have been if I hadn't gone to college. And then The Day I Died started with handwriting analysis. I was sort of trolling for ideas for a short story, I remember 10 years ago. And I was in the library, actually, looking for an idea. The library, I should name the library. It's the Edgebrook Public Library, since we are in a library in the Chicagoland area,
absolutely.
I should say. It was a library
shout
in
out to
the Chicagoland area, Edgebrook. Looking for ideas for some kind of story for my MFA program, and I found a book on handwriting analysis. So I thought, well, I don't know anything about that. And then the book that I'm writing for next spring is started with a location. So far it's been something different for every single one. Yeah.
Let's talk about the handwriting analysis a little bit. Do you write a lot by hand? Personally?
I've written a lot by hand over my lifetime. My handwriting has changed drastically over my lifetime. That was one of the things I've been thinking about since I started working on.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I don't know what it means. I think it means maybe I've changed as a person. But I didn't know a lot about it either. I read that book and I thought, well, this is, I can use this for a short story. Now, in a short story, I didn't use that much of it, right?
Yeah.
Until I started writing a novel, I didn't need that much research to write it. So I had to go back and research a little bit more when I started filling it out. And then again, when I rewrote it, because I hadn't worked enough of the handwriting in, so I had to go back again and learn more about it. Yeah.
In the book, the town, and especially the sheriff, they view Anna's handwriting analysis skills kind of suspiciously. Mm-hmm. That they're almost like a type of fortune-telling or palm reading. Do you share those suspicions, or do you see a lot of truth hidden in handwriting?
I'm not really sure what I think. I'm no expert at all. I've only read a little bit, only researched a little bit. I did have a handwriting expert come to my launch party a couple weeks ago. It was really fun.
How was that?
It was so fun.
Were they kind?
He was very, very nice and very charming. And I just interviewed him about his work. What kind of work would bring someone like you forward? It was a lot of signatures on wills and contracts and that sort of thing. It was a lot less sexy and crazy and voodoo than I think some people were thinking it was. But it was really interesting. It was fun to talk to somebody.
It really is. Have you ever tried to analyze your own handwriting?
I have not, but I can tell you that since reading that handwriting book, every time I go to sign something or write something out, I sort of freeze.
Yeah. What's this saying?
I'm about halfway through a word, and then I think I can see what's going on here.
So the book takes place in a small town, Indiana, and I found it to be it's an interesting choice for someone to settle down in who's constantly on the move, and I think you do a good job of kind of explaining how that happened. But for someone who is constantly moving and doesn't want to be noticed, to settle in a small town, why did you end up choosing a small town setting for this book?
Well, that's pretty easy why I chose a small town setting, because I'm from a small town in Indiana, and it's one of the places that I know best. So I live in Chicago now. I live in Chicago now, but I grew up in a small town in Indiana, and I went to college in another smallish town in Indiana. So, writing what you know, writing what you are thinking about, and writing from the experience that you can, just talk about more. I wouldn't try to write a New York novel. I wouldn't try to write an LA novel. I wouldn't know where to begin or how to get it right, but I can get this right.
Yeah. I noticed in the back of your book, I really love that you actually have a playlist of music. Mm-hmm. It's things like, Ryan Adams, Jim James, My Morning Jacket kind of stuff. Little Mumford and Sons is in there. And to me, it's almost seemed like these were kind of like Midwest highway anthems, stuff that you would love to listen to if you were driving through this sort of flat Indiana.
Very excellent music for the car.
It's a very suitable soundtrack. So do you always write to music?
I don't always write to music, but I often write to music. I can write to silence. I can write to cafe noise and your local Starbucks. I have written in restaurants. I've written in anywhere. I've written everywhere. But sometimes if I'm having trouble focusing or I'm having trouble getting started, one of the things I can do is put on a pair of headphones and listen to a song that is tonally the right kind of song for what I'm trying to write. And I do build playlists for each of my books. So each book has got a playlist somewhere. Yeah. Sometimes I don't put it together and then write the book. I sort of put it together over time.
It sort of takes shape, it seems like. Yeah. And so the music would change then depending on the kind of story you were writing?
The novel would, the playlist would change as I was writing, sometimes by scene. I would need a faster, more aggressive song for a certain kind of scene. I can tell you that for The Black Hour, I was about halfway through when I found the song of the novel. It's a song called Sail by a band called AWOL Nation.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very screamy song. It's not for everyone. But I heard it on the radio in my car as I was driving somewhere and thought, if I can't find this song and get this on my computer and listen to this over and over and over again, I am never going to finish this book.
Yeah.
But I did. I listened to it on repeat for the rest of the draft of the novel.
One last question, just a general. I'd love to hear, what are you reading right now?
I just finished reading House, Tree, Person by Katrina McPherson. That's a book that isn't out until September, but it's great. I love everything that she writes. What else am I writing? I'm reading a book about psychopaths for research.
Research, right.
It is. The Women in the Castle by Jessica Shattuck, I think is how you say that. I went to visit HarperCollins and they gave me a copy, so
very cool.
I'm going to read something in what everybody else is reading, in the know.
Yeah. Well, Lori, I just want to thank you so much for being on the podcast. Congratulations on the book, and we wish you the best.
Thanks a lot for having me.
So if you would like to check out The Day I Died or any other Lori Rader-Day titles from the library, head on over to our website, www.cooklib.org. There you can find our catalog where you can search all of her books or find any of the other books that maybe she recommended or just browse our mystery collection. While you're over on our website, we want to recommend that you head over to Shelf Life. That's the library's blog where we always share what's new and interesting in books, movies, music. We also post tips for genealogy and share some of our local history stories as well. So that blog's address is shelflife.cooklib.org. We want to welcome your feedback. If you've got anything that you want to comment on or if you want to make some suggestions for future episodes, shoot us an email. webmaster@cooklib.org is where you can send those messages. And if you enjoy this podcast, we want to encourage you to just share it with your friends, share it with those you love. And while you're at it, take a minute and leave us a nice little rating on iTunes. It does help us out quite a bit. We will be back soon, but until then, keep reading, keep watching, and keep listening.